All right, ready to dive into another case. This one is pretty chilling. Let's unpack the story of Lauren Giddings. She was a 27-year-old law student from Georgia, and this happened back in June 2011.
Yeah, and it starts as a missing persons case, but then just days after Lauren disappears, they make a pretty horrifying discovery.
Yeah.
They found her torso in a trash can outside her apartment building.
Oh, my gosh. Outside her own apartment.
Right outside.
That is terrifying. And, I mean, right away, that must have sent a pretty clear signal to the investigators.
Right. Yeah, I mean, this wasn't just some random act of violence, right? This wasn't, in the woods or something. It was very clearly someone trying to conceal a crime,
Yeah.
but like right in plain sight, like right outside the victim's home.
So that must have narrowed down the suspect pool pretty quickly.
Oh, absolutely. And it actually led them to a guy named Stephen McDaniel.
Stephen McDaniel. Okay.
And get this, he wasn't just Lauren's neighbor.
Uh-oh.
They were former classmates at Mercer University.
Okay. So they knew each other.
They did.
So it's not just some random person.
Exactly.
That's what makes this case so unsettling to me. Like, the victim and the perpetrator already knew each other. It adds like a whole other layer of complexity to this story. You know what I mean? It's not just some stranger danger thing. This is someone who was at least on some level familiar to Lauren.
Absolutely. And, that familiarity really adds a psychological intrigue to the whole case.
Yeah.
Like, you start to ask questions like, what was their relationship actually like? Was he a friend? Was there some kind of motive?
Right? Yeah.
These questions become really central to understanding the crime.
Well, and here's where things take an even stranger turn.
Oh, yeah.
Before the police even named McDaniel as a suspect, he gave an interview to a local news station.
He did. What a weird thing to do.
I know. Like, he was presented himself as a concerned friend. Like, oh no, where is Lauren? But meanwhile,
Right. Meanwhile.
the police were already looking at him.
Wow.
And that interview actually became a key piece of evidence, not so much for what he said, but for how he reacted.
How he reacted.
Yeah, there's footage of him learning about the discovery of the torso while the cameras are rolling. And his response is, well, it's disturbing.
Disturbing how? Like, what does he do?
I don't know. It's just like his face changes, his demeanor shifts, he starts acting really strange. The whole thing is very unsettling.
Huh.
And, it's a video clip that actually went viral. It became kind of a chilling example of how deceptive appearances can be.
I can see that.
Yeah. It's one of those things that just makes you think twice about who you could trust.
For sure.
Yeah, you never really know what's going on behind closed doors or, inside someone's head.
Right.
But it didn't end there. So after that interview, McDaniel voluntarily went to the police station to give a statement.
Okay.
But things escalated pretty quickly.
Oh, yeah. What happened?
Well, that statement turned into an interrogation. It lasted for over 12 hours.
12 hours.
And during that time, the police got a search warrant for his apartment.
And what did they find?
And that's when they found the evidence that really sealed his fate.
Oh. What'd they find?
Hidden in his apartment was the hacksaw they think he used to dismember Lauren's body.
Oh, wow. That's a pretty big turning point in the investigation.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, finding the hacksaw, that's hard to explain away.
Right.
So did he finally confess at that point?
He did. Yeah, he confessed, and to avoid the death penalty, he ended up taking a plea deal.
Okay, so as part of that plea deal, did he give even more details about what happened?
Oh, yeah.
Like what?
Well, he admitted to using a master key to get into Lauren's apartment at like 4:30 in the morning.
4:30 a.m.
Yeah, and then he strangled her in her bedroom.
Oh my God.
And then he spent like the entire next day dismembering her body.
That's just horrific. And to think about the level of planning involved, like getting a master key, going in at 4:30 in the morning. It's scary.
Yeah, and it gets worse. So he also admitted that he had been filming Lauren.
Filming her.
Yeah, like from outside her apartment, like before the murder even happened.
So this wasn't just some like spur of the moment thing. This was premeditated.
Exactly.
That is so disturbing. I mean, what could possibly drive someone to do something like this?
I know. And that's what makes this case so fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah, from a psychological perspective, McDaniel wasn't like some stereotypical monster. He was a law student, an intelligent guy, someone who, blended in, went to class.
Right. You'd never suspect.
Right, exactly. Like on the surface, he seemed totally normal, but underneath it all, there was obviously this capacity for, heroic violence.
And it's almost scarier to think that evil can look so ordinary. Like we always want to believe that we can spot danger, that there are warning signs.
Right.
But this case really just throws all of those assumptions out the window.
It does. It forces us to confront the reality that anyone is capable of darkness.
Yeah.
Like the line between good and evil is not always so clear. And that's a really difficult truth to process.
For sure. I mean, think about the people who were close to Lauren, her family, her friends, even just people in that community. How do you even begin to heal from something like that?
Yeah. The impact of a crime like this is just massive. You have the immediate trauma, the grief, the injustice of it all, and then there's the long-term psychological toll that it takes on everyone left behind. The fear, the anxiety,
Right.
it changes everything.
And they never found the rest of her remains,
Right. That's right.
which I can only imagine makes it even harder to find any sense of closure.
Yeah, it definitely leaves wound, a feeling of incompleteness. And for her family, I mean, they may never have the chance to truly lay her to rest.
It's just heartbreaking. So what happened after the confession? What was his sentence?
He got life in prison with the possibility of parole in 2041,
Okay.
but it doesn't end there. There have been a few attempts to appeal the verdict since then.
Really?
Yeah, actually, his father tried to raise money for an appeal.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, like through crowdfunding, but it got shut down pretty quickly.
Well, I mean, on one hand, I can understand a parent wanting to fight for their child.
Right.
But on the other hand, it also brings up questions about accepting responsibility, you know?
Yeah, that's the dilemma. Like, how do we support someone we love
Right.
while still acknowledging the harm that they've caused? It's complicated.
It really is.
It's a moral question without any easy answers.
And then there's McDaniel himself. Didn't he try to represent himself in court at some point?
He did. He argued that his rights were violated during the investigation, but the judge denied the appeal.
So as of right now, he's still incarcerated.
He is serving a life sentence for Lauren's murder. But this case, it really continues to draw attention. People are still talking about it, debating it.
Why do you think that is?
Well, I think there's always been this fascination with true crime, this desire to understand, like, the darkest parts of human behavior. What makes someone do something so horrific?
Yeah, it's like we're trying to make sense of the senseless or find some kind of reason in the face of pure evil.
Maybe it's a way for us to cope with our own fears and anxieties. By kind of dissecting these stories, we're trying to find a lesson in there somewhere, even when there might not be one.
Right. Yeah, I mean, sometimes there just aren't easy answers, but maybe the process of searching for those answers is important in itself.
Yeah, I think so. And I think another lesson that we can take away from all this is the importance of community.
Oh, yeah. How so?
Well, when Lauren first went missing, it really sparked a huge response from the community.
Really?
Yeah, like people came together to search for her. They wanted to support her family,
Right.
and they demanded justice for what happened.
Well, that's good to hear, at least, that in the face of something so awful, people were able to come together like that. It's a reminder that even in the darkest times, there's still hope and there's still good in people.
Exactly. It shows that even when we see the very worst of humanity, the best of humanity can still come out too.
Yeah. And that's not just limited to, like, the physical community, right? I mean, think about the online communities, too. Like, those true crime groups, people who are really invested in these cases, they keep these stories alive.
That's true.
And they advocate for answers. They want to make sure that the victims aren't forgotten.
Absolutely. And it also shows just how powerful storytelling can be. Because even though these cases are often terrifying and disturbing, they do captivate us. They make us confront some really uncomfortable truths about ourselves and the world.
It's true. They make you think about things you might not want to think about, like your own vulnerability, or just how fragile life really is.
Yeah. And I think that's okay. I mean, it's important to acknowledge those feelings.
It is. Well, this has been another incredibly insightful deep dive.
It has.
Definitely a heavy one, though. But we learned a lot about the criminal justice system, the psychology of crime, and how violence impacts individuals and communities.
Yeah, it's a case that raises a lot of really tough questions.
It does. Questions that we may never have the answers to. But even without those answers, I think there's still a lot we can take away from Lauren's story, about the importance of hope and compassion.
Absolutely. And the resilience of the human spirit.
Exactly. Well, thank you for joining us for this deep dive, and until next time, stay safe out there.